What follows is a Santa Cruz City Council meeting, deliberation, and voting on a Homeland Security grant for an armored attack vehicle, and the shutting down of that meeting by a handful of vocal activists opposed to the vote.
I don't have a lot of respect for the City Council, and I don't... Oh, I'm being interrupted. Yep.
But first, a little background. There has been what is referred to as military drawdown following the end of the major combat portion of the Iraq War, resulting in a massive surplus of unneeded military equipment. The program, Department of Defense Excess Property Program 1033.
Programs that allow the military to transfer surplus equipment to city and state police forces.
There is also a program in which the Department of Homeland Security offers grants to cities across the country, such as this military attack vehicle in St. Louis, Missouri. It was seen in the coverage of a protest in Ferguson following the acquittal of Mike Brown's murderer. Police refer to them as rescue vehicles, but we've been seeing them at protests with guns trained on peaceful protesters. Many hundreds of cities have now accepted these attack vehicles. A Google image search turns up numerous examples, including 2,500 military attack vehicles given to FEMA. You may ask why the Federal Emergency Management Agency needs military attack vehicles. The Santa Cruz Police Department has been offered a $250,000 grant from Homeland Security for an armored attack vehicle and is shopping for something like this. The Lenco Bearcat, often referred to as a first responder rescue vehicle, but this sales video shows it in a completely different light. It is clearly being marketed as an attack vehicle. This is clearly being marketed as much more than a first responder vehicle. This is a home invasion attack vehicle. The Bearcat has protected gun stations.
We can actually shoot from within the vehicle, but we do have gun ports there in the back, and there's two on the side as well.
The Santa Cruz Police Department buried the proposal for the attack vehicle on the consent agenda, and lawmakers didn't alert the public that it was not only going to be discussed, but voted on. Police in Ferguson are now rethinking their use of the attack vehicle, and now believe their Bearcat exacerbated the situation there.
Armored cars didn't feel protective to protesters.
We also know that it agitated the crowd as well. When they saw those, they thought, okay, the riot is on, apparently. So it was a double-edged sword. There was a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about what these vehicles are, who we are, what we're doing on top of our vehicles, what we're trying to achieve.
Davis, California refused to accept their attack vehicle. San Jose, California is returning their attack vehicle. At a city council meeting in Concord, New Hampshire recently, where there was standing room only, they had debated the proposal of an attack vehicle. In Santa Cruz, California, the general public wasn't made widely aware that an armored attack vehicle was going to be on the agenda. Several activists had been in the room waiting for a different agenda item when they heard about it.
I understood the alarm based on kind of the language that is sometimes used around issues like this, such as militarization of the police. And I do share some of the concerns around that. My own study of this and research, limited, but I spent some time with it. You know, I did not see this as a militarization of our police force, but because folks in the community have talked about it that way, I felt like it was really important that we have a good discussion at the council meeting.
Regional emergency response and rescue vehicle. It consists of, it's a basic Ford F550 diesel pickup. It's fully armored. It is built specifically for municipal law enforcement. It carries up to 12 members or 12 people. It's an all-terrain vehicle, four-wheel drive, and it provides maximum ballistic protection to all first responders and community members. A little background, through the United States Department of Homeland Security and the Bay Area Security Initiative, Santa Cruz County was recognized as not having an adequately equipped vehicle for the entire county to appropriately respond to emergency situations. The city fire department and the police department are in need of a contemporary vehicle to safely transport and deploy emergency responders and also conduct any evacuations during a public safety event. It will be utilized to conduct rescues in natural disasters such as the 1989 earthquake. Provides protection to the first responders. It would allow first responders to respond more adequately to an active shooter situation, allowing the first responders, the police and firefighters, to get up close to the situation to provide medical aid and evacuations if needed during an active shooter situation. Volatile situations such as our recent hash oil fires where we had rocketing butane canisters flying through the air, they could utilize this vehicle as protection for them. These are just a few examples of when the vehicle would be utilized. An obvious example would also be on February 26, 2013, when we lost the lives of Sergeant Butch Baker and Detective Elizabeth Butler. Both of these examples are incidents where the immediate deployment of first responders and medics into a high-risk area would be more effective and efficient if we had our own vehicle.
Is there a picture, does anyone have a picture here that the public can see?
In this proposal before City Council, no photographs or schematics were provided by police to assist in the decision-making process, and no photo was available for this council session for the people in the audience to see what is being proposed.
It does look a little scary, at least the pictures I saw for the Bearcat, it looks like an army vehicle kind of. But obviously it doesn't have guns or anything. And then my last question, could this be used in a protest situation? If things are getting out of hand or the police need to, get into a protest to help people that were wounded, et cetera, could you imagine using it in a protest?
I can't imagine it being used during a protest. This vehicle is, I think maybe some of the fear is probably the way it's constructed because of the level of ballistic protection. And most protests don't rise to that level.
You will have 2 minutes to speak to us, and anyone that wants to come up to the podium and be ready to come to the podium, this is your opportunity. And again, I apologize for acknowledging. And again, I apologize.
I don't think we should be lulled into thinking that this militarization of the police that's going on across the country, with this armored vehicle being part of it from the Department of Homeland Security, that this military equipment is there for our protection. The police are more and more an occupation force in communities across the country, as we've seen with the verdict in Ferguson, as military vehicles rolled into the streets there. Civilians were treated as combatants and even concussion grenades thrown at them and various other forms of violence from the police. The police, in being militarized, in being prepared, they're being prepared for the fact that the standard of living in this country is being driven down by the capitalist class, by a capitalist state that is basically at war with the working class in this country. And they are preparing to have a militarized police force for strikes, for protests, for everything under the sun against the people. And I ask that you turn down this grant from the Department of Homeland Security and not militarize the Santa Cruz police force.
Because of these type of vehicles.
Here, Police Chief Kevin Vogel scrambles to find an image of the armored attack vehicle on the internet.
We can now shoot and not be hurt. So if there can be a guarantee, there's no...
More than a dozen people spoke during the public comment session, unanimously opposing the proposal. Here, Robert Norris challenges the decorum rules as a protest to the proposal.
So the reason I say this is because I don't have a lot of respect for this city council. And I don't, I'm being interrupted. Yes, what's the problem?
I've been asking anyone that's up at the podium to speak to the council, as that is the decorum of the room. So I'm hoping you will turn around and speak to
I
me.
understand you're hoping. So, my point here is this, that I believe there are a number of questions here that have mostly already been raised. Who's threatening the first responders? How often has there been a problem here in this community that the police have found this to be the case?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, but this is a second warning about turning around and speaking to the council, which is what the podium is there for, so you speak to the council.
The podium is here to speak to you and to the community. I am showing, through my posture, how I feel about the situation. That is a form of speech, and I will continue to use it. In Berkeley, tear gas, rubber bullets, and batons are being used on protesters. I'm being interrupted again. What seems to be the
I've
problem?
been asked by my colleagues to take a recess.
Well, at least there'll be a delay. All right, I'll finish my speech. In Berkeley, tear gas, rubber bullets, and batons, as anyone knows who's been watching on the internet, are being used against protesters. Journalists up in Berkeley have specifically raised the issue of police officers beating them. That's in the last 2 days. And we're not talking about 2 years ago. We're not even talking about the massive show of force that Chief Vogel showed with Occupy Santa Cruz. And I'm glad the photo is up here now. And it's interesting that the council has left, because hopefully the community will weigh in on this. And I don't mean necessarily by letters to the Times, though that helps too. But in Berkeley, people are weighing in on the streets. That, unfortunately, seems to be what people like this understand. Every single speaker here has opposed this. They have recessed. Why?
We want the police to protect and serve, and by having a vehicle like this, it's like they're our enemies. And it's just very scary to have a vehicle like this, and this is only the beginning. It's only going to create havoc here, and we're going to start blocking I-17 and Highway 1. Anyone want to do that?
We have a limited window with UASI for the $220,000, which is the base for it, and then we have a window until March to have it completely expended, build, ship, and placed here for the additional $31,000 that's coming from the state Homeland Security. So a delay would imperil our ability to get the $220,000. We have just a short amount of time, really through the remainder of the year, to expend that money and seek reimbursement from the city and county of San Francisco.
This is funny timing after Ferguson. I mean, let's just be honest, this is a little bit of a funny timing for it, but I understand why the police would want it, because the other part of the timing is that 2 years ago, you know, we had a situation where it would have been really nice to have one of these vehicles, including evacuate my kid from Brent's of 40 small schools where we had an armed shooter in a neighborhood. So, I'm sure the police haven't forgotten about that. I haven't forgotten about it. But I do have to say procedurally that I'm not super pleased with the way that this and some other grant receipts for the police department have come to us. And so for the future, as far as process goes, new equipment for the police department is always political by nature because it's about how power is used. Which is often legitimate on the part of the police, but it's still how power is used. So when we ask for new equipment, I'd like to see a picture. I'd like to see a description of usage and potentially guidelines for usage with new equipment. And I'd like to see it put on the regular agenda and not the consent agenda, because it just calls it out more for regular people. Now, having said that, I think we're just going to have to try to figure this out now, because I don't want to endanger the funding source, as I said.
Wait a minute, we should have started doing this months and months ago.
Sir,
What is the story?
You do not have an opportunity.
No, I'm sorry. You just all of a sudden you bring this crazy thing to us and only at O'Day.
I'll ask you to leave the room. You cannot.
Hey, we're asking you to have respect for the community and give us an opportunity. And months before, you don't say, oh, it's too late to go by. Oh, we have to do it now because we only have a month to spend this money. That's outrageous. What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry, but I need quiet in the chamber, so I do not need to ask you to leave. Can you carry on with your comments, please? And I do appreciate that you will respect the fact that we have listened to you, and now it's an opportunity for the council to.
But you listened to us months.
I've asked you a second time, so thank you for being quiet so we can continue.
So in the future, I would accept the resolution of the grant with two caveats. One is that in the future, new equipment for the police is put on a regular agenda item, that there's pictures of the equipment, and that the protocols for usage are described. And secondly, was specific to this particular item, that it's part of the council direction that it is not the intention of the city for the vehicle to be used in protests. And when I quickly...
This is not enough! What's wrong with you people? What is wrong with you people?
I will not ask again. I've been more than patient.
I've been patient too.
So I'm going to ask you to leave the room, sir, unless you can be quiet so that we can continue our business.
So you can just railroad this thing down the city's
Sergeant at Arms at this time.
That's what you're talking about, just ram it down the throat of the people.
You know, I have a lot of respect for the activists in the room and for the police who feel like they need to protect themselves more. And, you know, I know that for some of the activists line, this is not enough, what I'm suggesting. And that's what I'm suggesting. So, you know, we're hearing you, we're listening to you. You don't need to shout any louder.
You're not listening, giving us enough time to talk. What's wrong with you?
So, so those are the two so the amendment is, first of all, that future equipment requests for the police have pictures and other descriptions and descriptions of how the equipment will be used, and they're put on the regular agenda item. And secondly, that this particular vehicle, it's the intention of the city not to use this particular vehicle for protest situations.
If the protests continue to be peaceful and they don't escalate into acts of violence, of course, that would of course
defines that.
That would of course mean that the equipment would not be utilized. But you have an opportunity where if the event transitions into acts of violence, I mean, now it goes to tactics, and you're really limited on what our response would look like and how safe that response would be. What if the police are the ones?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and that's why I mentioned the picture about Ferguson. Yeah. I can imagine using it, so maybe we should say it would only be used to protect the lives of first responders.
Yeah,
that's a better clarification.
And the community as a whole. I mean, this is a defensive tool. It's not necessarily an offensive tool. So we're willing to have the conversation no matter which direction this goes.
All those in favor of the amendment on the floor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. No. So that fails, I think, 4-2. Okay, so we're back to the original motion on the floor, and I was about to call on Councilmember. Excuse me.
Who said no? Can we get a
5-2.
raise of hands again, please? The community needs to know who said no.
Yes, so I can say, you can figure out the yeses on that one were Councilmember Posner and Vice Mayor Lane, with everyone else.
So Hillary, David,
Excuse me.
you said no. Who else?
Ma'am, you cannot be yelling from the back of the room.
Dawn, can I come up there then?
No, you cannot. This is a closed hearing now.
Well, they were speaking. They got a second turn.
Excuse me, ma'am, I am trying to show my patience with you. The process is that you've already had an opportunity to speak. When we asked someone to come and give information, that was because after the closed session, after the closed public hearing, council members have questions and someone's been asked to give information. So I am letting you know now that you cannot be disrupted from the back of the room. And I'm giving you time to do that now by going back where you were, or if you want to be somewhere else. But the podium is closed to the public for now while we're doing our deliberation. Thank you very much. That's the process, so there's not an opportunity.
I'd like to address you up here.
That's not an option.
Why is the police being offered a second opportunity to clarify questions?
Ma'am, your question won't be getting answered. We're doing our deliberation, and I'm giving you the opportunity to stay in the room and not be disrupted. So
none of the questions that I gave you were answered. Not one of the questions. I listed 30 questions, and not one question has been answered by any of you.
Nor do we have a time. This is our opportunity now for us to be addressing this. So this is.
You're not addressing the questions. You're just voting on it.
Yeah, I'm disappointed the amendment did pass, and I think it was probably I imagine it may have been partly because of the lack of respect from the speakers, but I'm a little torn about this now because, you know, like I said before, I see it as a legitimate vehicle for the police usage, but I feel like we've had a bad process where we don't really have time to really flesh out the concerns of the community in another meeting. So I tried to do an amendment, which admittedly wasn't, you know, the most inclusive or best amendment ever, but it was on the fly, and you know, the council didn't go for it. So, you know, if I vote against it, I'd want the police to know that it's not that I'm against the vehicle necessarily, but this process.
Oh no.
Let me finish. But I don't think the process has been good, and I think the community has really legitimate concerns about new police.
Excuse me, Councilmember Posner, just one moment. Once again, This is unbelievable that I've had to take the time for probably the 6th or 7th time to be asking you for quiet while we deliberate on an item on the agenda.
There's no deliberation.
So with that, are you done with your comments?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Is there any other comments from the council before we go to a vote? Okay, with that, we have a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 6-1. Thank you very much. And again, I'm going to ask the...
Shame! Shame! You're supposed to stand for democracy! Shame on you! Shame! Yes, take a picture! Take a picture! Shame! Shame! Take a picture!
We know why you need this armored car.
Chambers is closed. Everybody needs to vacate the chambers, please.
Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
Hands up, don't shoot.
Fair trade, organic. You know what I'm saying? The same way.
That was the last council meeting of the year and the last for Mayor Robinson, whose term is over. Because Robinson canceled the rest of the session, all other agenda items will be held over no earlier than January 13.
The city council was too dumb to see right through them. Oh, no, windows.
Yeah, this is fucked up. No, but that's not enough. We didn't get it. That is a big problem. We should have been able to organize for 6 months against this. We shouldn't have to, we have to do it today.
So there's a bigger decision coming up with the license plate readers, and I'm going to commit to making sure that our community has good notice about that. It's going to be, I don't know, but I'm going to give you good notice. I'm going to make sure you have good notice about it.
An hour before?
No, at least a few weeks. Kick you out.
When does it smell like Nazi Germany? That's what I want to know.
It smells exactly like
When does it smell?
Maybe you need to make a serious point and just resign or something.
Thanks for hearing me, guys.
Oh, yeah. Everyone calm down, go home, everything's okay.
Shame! 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 Shame!
What kind of nonsense?
Shame! 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 Shame!
This is very disrespectful.
3 hours later, new council persons were sworn in, as well as the new mayor and vice mayor.
Do solemnly affirm
Do solemnly affirm
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
And the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
That I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely
Without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion,
And I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Here are some excerpts of the new mayor's speech.
Now that our police department is almost fully staffed, we have the opportunity to more fully engage with the community on crime prevention and build stronger relationships with segments of the community that do not currently have those strong relationships with law enforcement. We'll continue to pipe water to everyone, pick up your waste and recycling, collect and treat your wastewater, patrol your streets, answer emergency medical and fire calls, maintain the parks, host dozens of recreation classes and leagues, issue hundreds of building permits, read thousands of emails, and put on an entertaining city council meeting every 2 weeks.
The city's website has always archived videos of the council meetings. Strangely, the entire video of the day's proceedings has not been uploaded to the page a week later, with a notice of technical problems. The next day, the article in the Daily News reported that a dozen people spoke out against the proposal. Most of the community at large had not been notified of the proposal. That being the case, with not one community member speaking in favor of it, why would the council move ahead to vote 6-1 in favor? In the days since the vote, an online petition has been started calling for a special session of City Council to address the issue, with the community at large being made aware of the proposal. Also in the days following the vote, 2 separate Facebook events have been posted inviting the community to protest at the next council session on January 13th.